noise. So, all right. Oh, that's very loud. I'll hold it here. My other paper. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Good afternoon. Thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Benjamin Johnson. I'm the events coordinator here for McNally Robinson Booksellers in Saskatoon. This event is being held on Treaty 6 territory, which is the land of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. As we listen to me, I guess, and Christalee share words today, may we also remember the Indigenous stories that have been told on this land since time immemorial. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Saskatoon launch of Permission Granted to Be Joyful Again by Christalee Froese, published by Your Nicholsworth Publishing. Thank you so much to Christalee for being here this afternoon and for working with us to make this event happen. Just a note, this event is being live streamed, so please be aware of the webcam off to your right. I'd also like to encourage you to silence your phones in this moment. If you'd like to buy a copy of Permission Granted to Be Joyful Again or Christalee's first book, Journey to Joy, you can find them on the signing table behind us, as well as on the desk by where you first walked in. You're welcome to get your book signed, but if you get it signed, please pay for it. My goodness. I shouldn't have to say that. My gosh. You're We also have a selection of journals. This is going to be a journaling workshop as well. So if you'd like a journal, we have a selection of journals up there. We also have none of those appeal to you. We have so many journals throughout the rest of the store. And finally, we will have a little bit of a Q&A at the very end. If you have questions for Christalee, feel free to ask them when prompted. So now to introduce our author. Christalee Froese is a journalist by the strictest definition, but the real life description of her goes more like this: mother, seeker, creator, mental health advocate. She's an award-winning journalist who has spent her career in the newspaper and magazine industries as a writer and editor. Her syndicated column, Rural Roots, was a staple of the Regina Leader Post and weekly newspapers throughout Western Canada for 20 years. She has been a travel writer for numerous Canadian magazines and all of Canada's major daily newspapers, as well as being a motivational speaker nationally. Froese published the nonfiction book Journey to Joy in 2018. It is a recount of her 2011 nervous breakdown and subsequent return to joy. Her public candor and courage sparked others to share their mental health journeys, which was the magic needed to create the More Joy movement. For the past 7 years, the More Joy movement has reached thousands with its online community, events, and retreats, and has provided over $50,000 in free counseling. In May, Froese was recognized in the Saskatchewan Legislative Assembly as a champion of mental health awareness, shifting the conversation from mental illness to joyful well-being. Everyone, please give Christalee a warm welcome.
Hey, who is he talking about? Would she please come forward? Thanks for being here, everyone, and thanks to McNally Robinson. It's like such a thrill when you see your little picture on the thing and it's like your book is real, because when you're writing it in your backyard or when you're crying because you're not going to finish it, it's a bit of an epiphany to see it. I also want to thank you all for coming and warn you today that Max TV is filming a little bit. That's going to do a little, what is it for you guys, a little promo for Max TV. So if you don't want to be in that, let us know. And I think we're
ready to go.
I think we're ready to go.
So I'll be interviewing you today, stepping out from behind the camera for once. So starting off with this, journalists typically don't spend their careers focused on joy. How did you come to this as your main subject?
Okay, so I want to start. I'm going to do a little caveat first. I want you all to know, and it's because we have one gentleman here, that we have come here as strangers, many of us. We will leave here as friends. And I only know that because Willis Jans, please, everybody, Willis, put your hand up. He was at a thing 2 weeks ago, you guys, in Drake, at the Drake Library. And Willis and I are now friends. And I'm going to tell you how that came to be. And so not only are you here to hear about joy, you are here to go forward and spread the stuff. Okay? And Willis and I will tell you how we've done that together. And it's magic. And I just want you to know today you're part of the magic. So what was the question?
Like, we're one question in, we're deviating from the script already.
One question in.
How did you come to joy as your main subject?
Okay. Truth is, I had a nervous breakdown in 2011. And so, this whole thing chose me. I did not choose it. And I think for many of us who go the path of depression, anxiety, any mental health, we don't choose it. It arrives at our doorstep, and you can run the other way from it, or you can turn and work with it. And 2011 was my turning point. And I call it a surrender, but it wasn't a choice. It was a forced surrender. But that's okay because I was able to turn. And so from that point, joy chose me. I had to choose joy to recover. And then this all developed from that one little choice. And so I started journaling about my breakdown. And that was simply for survival. When I left the mental health unit, I was at the Regina General for 3 weeks. I got a little piece of paper that said, my next psychiatry appointment was in 6 months. And I cried, right? Because I was still breaking down. And so I had to find a way to build myself up. And so I started journaling. And I thought, one September, I woke up and said, you know what? I deserve joy. And that was a switch, because many of us think, joy is for others, certain kinds of joy, for the rich or the famous or the skinny or the tall or whatever it is. But I decided on that day that joy was for me. And I started writing. I've heard it takes 21 days to form a habit. And so I forced joy on myself for those 21 days. And after that first month, some little glimmer appeared of my old self. And the next month I thought, you know what, I can do this another month and I can take a different topic of joy on. And I did it for 24 months and it turned into, this book, which is my journey to joy, which covers really, it's a step-by-step back. And then fast forward 8 years, and I was never, ever going to write another book because it was so much work. And, some little thing chose me again. And this book is more, there's 24 tools in it. And it's kind of what I learned, because I realized I am so not alone. I am so not alone. And if you're feeling like you're alone, you are so not alone. And so what happened is, after I toured with this book, so this came out in 2018, I heard stories, you guys, the stories. Usually I stand up and walk, so this is going to feel really weird for me, but I'm just going to use Ben. People would, after I spoke like this, they'd come up to me and they lean over here. They go, me too. Right? And they grab my elbow and they go, my son is going through it right now. Yeah. Good. Okay, great. Okay. Ben and I are going to be great. We're a good team. And, this was the level of shame, right? That was around the whole subject. I had one woman, I spoke in Swift Current. She came up to me after and she goes, I'm a fellow traveler. Now we're giving it names. No, I like it. I like the fellow traveler, but it's a fancy name for depression. And so what happened is 100% of the people I met were touched. Coworker, teammate, friend, neighbor, elderly, young, old. And so the More Joy movement chose me to be its leader. And so we started hosting events. I thought, let's host some events where we talk about this stuff. So More Joy Regina has become this annual thing. We're in our 8th, and we have hundreds of people that come to Regina. And we do women's retreats, and we do all these things. And so, the whole thing is that I say to myself almost every day, I'm not alone. And I never have been. I remember being curled up on my living room floor. That's where it all went down before I ended up in the hospital. And I thought, I am the worst at coping with life. I really thought, because I was like, my neighbor, she's going to work and he's going to school and they're getting up and trucking grain and they're doing, like, everybody seems to be doing fine. But after I toured with this book, I realized people are curled up in their showers. People are humped over their steering wheels in their cars. You know, people are on back roads. So it's universal. And I want to read to you one part of the book that let me know that, yeah, I'm not alone and that we need to help each other. Because if I had a headache, you guys, and I said to you, I have a headache, you'd say, well, here's a Tylenol. And listen, if it is it a migraine and I have this doctor and I do this and I put ice and you know, it could be the same for depression and anxiety. I'm having a panic attack right now. Well, you know what I do? Oh, but we don't treat that as the illness that it is. But I'm here to, we're here to help that process along together. So this is how I knew a More Joy movement was needed. So this is from the second book. I don't know exactly how the More Joy movement came to be. All I know is there was some premeditated pathway carved out by the universe that was laid at my feet to follow. I knew the signposts because they were of my soul. They told me not to pat here because I have a mic, but I just have to pat once, my soul. They were of my soul. And they came to me in wild, unachievable ideas like just start doing some videos on the interweb about mental health and just hold an event so people can talk openly about depression and anxiety and just share your struggles and host retreats and plan flash mobs in the mall and fund counseling and make good food, and they will come. And they did. I knew something beyond my control and even beyond my knowledge was happening when I was asked to speak to busloads of women in 2018. This was just after Journey to Joy had come out and I had shared my whole traumatic breakdown story and recovery in detail, or as my husband calls it, my diary. And I had been invited by this local organizer to read a portion of the book to the women on these buses of holiday shoppers, Christmas holiday shoppers. In the dead of winter, a series of chartered buses called Women on Wheels would lumber across the prairies, transporting women from throughout Saskatchewan to 4 small towns east of Regina. The women on these buses would be delivered into Victorian scenes in some towns with turkey legs to eat and baking urchins to photograph. And in other towns, there were boutiques filled with sweaters and shoes, and still in others, charming cafes with pastries and lattes. The idea was the brainchild of my friend Renata, who had started this pilgrimage originally by car to support locally run rural businesses. By the time I was asked to be a guest speaker, it had become a business venture involving numerous buses over several weekends, transporting up to 350 women per Christmas season. We'd incorporate some fun antics into the whole thing. We had an Old West holdup one year where one of our local cowboys rounded up the bus and stole purses. Tons of fun. One year we we forgot somebody and the bus had to turn into a farmyard, and the farm wife came out with pierogies for everybody. Another year we had Blake Berland. He's a country singer, and he was on the side of the road with his truck. And they'd pick him up and he'd get on with his guitar and sing. And guess whose turn it was this year? Me, with my story about depression. So this year it was my turn. I was either at the beginning or at the end of this exhaustive 16-hour one-day rural shopping trip. I'd see the massive bus approaching on the horizon, and that was my cue to climb out of the ditch and into the bus. This is literal, you guys. Picture it. And regale these women with my story about depression. I didn't know what their response would be. Who wants to hear about someone's journey through anxiety and depression during a girl's day out of adventure, caroling, boot buying, and eggnog drinking? They did. Busload after busload rolled into town, and I told them my story. Even the night buses, whose passengers were in post-shopping comas, eyes closed, shoes kicked off. They'd wake up after a few minutes of hearing this lady speak, and not at the funny parts either, but when I got to my experience with depression. They'd open their eyes, and one by one, they'd poke their groggy heads into the aisle to see who was talking so openly about the things we don't talk about. I didn't know if my message was resonating because I could only see a few seats in. But when those women got off the bus, The hugs I received and the stories I heard were real and raw. Nearly every single woman had one to share. Sometimes it was about themselves. Sometimes it was about a son, a daughter, a mom, or a dad. It was about those they had lost to mental illness. It was about those who were trudging right through the middle of it as we were speaking. There were 6 buses of 56 women that year, and almost every single passenger hugged me with an, "Oh my God, you get it," kind of hug. That only those who know. And that's when I knew. I'm not alone in struggling with mental illness and never have been. And so the More Joy movement was born. Cue Ben.
Cue me. To turn our attention back to your first book, Journey to Joy, what are some of the greatest lessons you learned in writing that book?
So in this one, I had spent a couple years writing and I didn't know how to wrap it up. And these, you'll read in here, I had an epiphany where the 5 kind of things that we need to know, I think that the universe wants you to know. This wasn't even me writing at this point, came to me. And so I wrote this chapter and who's all here? I kind of rocked as I wrote it. And I say it wrote me. And so this is what the universe wants you to know. There are 5 things here, but I'll read the 2 that are the most profound. And I still go back and read sometimes because I forget. And key number 2 was write, or whatever gets you lost. For me, it's writing and mothering and seeking and running and painting. These are the things that lead to large lapses of time during which I know not where I've been or what I've done. I get lost in some time warped space where I'm nothing but myself. You might get lost in journaling or knitting or singing or skydiving or hitchhiking or baking or brain surgery. You're just lost in who you are with no way back to who you think you should be, or who your parents thought you'd be, or who your teachers knew you could be, right? We get hooked into that perception of what people want for us and from us. You're just lost in you, that you buried at the bottom of who everyone else thinks you are and who you ought to be. In this place of being lost, miraculously, you will be found to yourself, because society can't reach you here. Your condemning inner critic does not have this place on our GPS. You are in a place no one else can find. You can breathe here. You are at peace here. You're lost to the earthly world of rules and countries and structures and paychecks, but you've found yourself. You found that which makes you joyful. So that's the second one I have in here. And the 4th one I have in here is Let Go. And I read this one often. I had to read this at the beginning of dance season this year, and you will all know why. Let go of what others think and of what you think they think, which are 2 different things anyways. If I could write a younger manual to myself, I would say, honey, 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 don't ever worry about what people think of you. It doesn't actually impact you unless you mull it over until it becomes real and you ignore all of your beauty and all of your greatness and all of your joyfulness in order to focus on that teeny tiny speck of assumed knowledge. So those are my tools from that one.
That's fantastic. In modern day North America, life is often booked solid, almost designed to be busy. How do we find time and momentum to start consciously seeking joy?
I was just listening to CBC on the way in, and somebody said, we wear our busy badges so proudly, eh? When you say to somebody, oh, how have you been? Oh, I'm so busy. And it's, oh, that's so good. Like if you'd ever say, oh, I've just been relaxing. Oh, so, just think about that for a minute. So part of my journey was to be able to take off the busy badge and start things that were meaningful, not because they got me money or things or to different places, but because they were of my soul. And so the 3rd chapter in Permission Granted is permission granted to start listening to your heart. I didn't mean to rhyme, but I did. So I'll read you a bit from this one. It seems possible today, not a whole book, but just some words on a page, some random ideas, some staccato sentences, some truths. Maybe there will be something worthwhile to write down. Maybe meaning can be made from the letters that will spill from my inner world, pooling to make sense to somebody. Hopefully to you, but maybe only to me. That's enough, I convince myself on this day. It's the tiniest sliver of light, hardly visible. If I try to take a big step toward it, it disappears, vanishes behind dark thoughts of how long another book will take, how much work it will be, and how few will want to read it. Yet a source of inspiration is simmering in my core. I can't be 100% certain or even 1% at this point, but I feel that writing something meaningful is possible today. Permission granted to believe in the smallest little bit of hope, I tell myself. I didn't used to think like this. I used to wait and wait. And then it was due, right? Till the money tree grows in the backyard, or till the kid leaves the house, or the baby's born, or you're waiting to experience happiness. I used to wait until everything was perfect, until the stars were aligned, the bank accounts gave their green light, and the full staircase to the goal was not only in sight, but had been reinforced and checked for steepness of grade. I held my breath for years and years on end for things to be just right. I used to think I was because I was a good planner, a type A personality, a prepared woman. It was not any of these. I was scared, right? I was scared. So what I've learned, and this book holds more, I do some scientific quoting. And so what I've learned about the brain over the years is that is normal. Like the brain has something called the negativity bias, which will help you point out safety issues every time, right? It will stop you and go, whoa, are you sure you want to do that? You sure want to write that book? You know how much time that will take? You know, you'll have to get Ben, and you have to sit in Brad McNally, and you have to put camera things on you, and right? Because your brain is wired, there's something called an amygdala, and it instantaneously tells you things that might get you out of your comfort zone. So what you have to do, though, the other side of it is called the prefrontal cortex, and that can talk down the amygdala. I call her Amy. Amy can really be a biatch. And so, like, the prefrontal cortex talks down Amy, right? And says, it'll be okay. The words, just like I did by starting, the words may come, and if they mean something only to you. And I shut off the scary part that said, you might write a book and have to sit at McNally Robinson, right? And so that's what I want to pass on in this book, is that you have to start. And so my life-saving psychologist, whom I simply call Tanya the Great, has been saying this transformative line to me for ages. Let's challenge that thought. So whenever Amy says, you can't write a whole book, I say, well, let's try. Maybe I can. I start coming up with things. Throughout our 14 years of therapy, it has been the very tool that has got me to see the negative thoughts that have avalanched down on me and trapped me beneath their weight. I have been plunking myself down in her office for years with perfectly reasonable reasons about everything from why I'm not a good mother to why other people's actions and attitudes are bringing me down. Let's challenge that thought, she almost always says during our sessions. And 100% of the time, she finds some faulty pattern of thinking that has automatically led me to a worst case thinking scenario. It's not true. It's just that I've repeated that thought enough times to make it fact in my soul. Where are we at?
I believe we're at the 24 practical tools.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yep. You go.
Okay, cool. So Permission Granted features 24 practical tools for seeking out joy. You have one special one that's not only helped you find joy, but has helped many others grant themselves permission to actively seek out what brings them joy as well. Can you tell us about wigs, not the hairpiece, wildly improbable goals?
Did you add the hairpiece?
Yeah.
You
I
had
can
liver.
ad-lib.
You had liver, you. That was really good. Okay, this is the part where it's going to turn into a bit of a workshop and you're going to have to do some exercises. So stay with me. I'm going to read the part of wigs. So wigs are wildly improbable goals. I did not invent that. It is by Martha Beck, and she is a life coach. And I started doing wildly improbable goals with her in 2011 before my breakdown. So just I'll read it to you because I think it comes across clearer here. I have caught myself on many an occasion asking the most debilitating question in my arsenal, which is, what will everyone think? Right? We all do it. It was a mantra I used so often in the past that it had become a superhighway of a neural pathway. It was automatic. It had hijacked all my permission granting power. I know many of you have had these thoughts too. I know this to be absolutely true because we do these fun sessions at our More Joy retreats, in which women come up with all kinds of dreams and desires that are buried beneath their own personal interstate of lies. We call them wigs, wildly improbable goals, a term coined by Martha Beck. I interpret wigs as goals of the soul that feel nearly impossible given the current state of not having enough time in your day or a money tree in your backyard or encouraging enough thoughts in your gray matter. You've thought about these goals from time to time, but you have talked yourself out of them because they're scary and they're unachievable to the negatively biased mind. When I wrote down my wigs in Martha's book, Finding Your North Star, keep in mind this was 2011, the year of my breakdown, before my breakdown. I wrote crazy stuff, you guys. This wasn't on TV, I'd say crazy ass stuff. I wrote some crazy ass stuff. I wrote, number one, have a baby. I had a 14-year-old son and we had lost one and I could not have a baby. So I wasn't having a baby, but I wanted a baby. I wrote number two, write a book. I wrote number three, start a joy project. Just let me be clear about how outlandish these wigs were at the time. My husband and I were 42 and had been waiting to adopt a baby from China for 5 years amidst rumors that all adoptions from that country would soon be ending. We had also officially decided to take our names off the adoption list, except I had lied to my husband and said, I sent in the cancellation paperwork and I didn't. As for the wig of writing a book, I hadn't started anything or even had an idea for a book. I just thought maybe when I retire. Most disturbingly, the Joy Project I wrote in 2011 came as I was in the middle of a downward spiral into clinical depression, which landed me in the mental health unit shortly after writing that goal. However, sitting here writing my second book, as my 15-year-old adopted daughter from China storms into the house and slams the door because her eyes were closed in her grade 9 photos and it's the end of the world. How can I possibly argue with Martha? Oh yeah, and what about that little joy project I accidentally started in 2018? So this wig thing, you guys, we now have 2,500 members in the More Joy movement. This wig thing is something. So this is why we do it as part of our retreats. And I'm going to ask you to create, we'll get to it for you to create some of your wigs in your life when you leave here today too. So this is at one of our retreats. I want to tell you about some of the women who have gone forth and done their wigs. The women in our sessions feel the same way I did when I wrote down my wildly improbable goal. Oh, that's really great. That's really nice, but that's not going to happen. Their dreams are such cool dreams, fun dreams, and most of the time totally achievable for us who are listening to these women. They say things like, I want to take a pottery class or get a dog or volunteer or travel to Paris or climb a mountain or sell flowers. And we say, do it. But for them and their negatively biased mind, it's hard. We want this goal for them. We know they can do it. The only hiccup is that we often can't grant ourselves the same permission and cheerleading squad we so eagerly give to others. But with a little encouragement to run a new pathway of possibility in their brains, by the time most of our women leave our retreat doors, they're giddy with excitement. We have one here. Were you giddy with excitement? Yeah. They dream of going somewhere they've always wanted to go, or getting back to an activity they always loved, or exploring a career they have convinced themselves they could not do. One precious woman had an invite from her nephew to visit him in the United Arab Emirates. She was about like 65, retired. So she reluctantly chose that as her wig to, but I can't go, she said to all of us, giving great details about why she was needed at home and her children needed her and her husband needed her and she couldn't possibly leave. I feel like it would be selfish to go, she said. What will everyone think? She said. I can't leave them behind. Guess what she did after we helped her challenge the thought and recognize that as just a highway of lies being told by her change-averse brain? Well, 5 months later, after the retreat, she was on a plane to Abu Dhabi, the capital city of the United Arab Emirates. She writes, she sent me an email. I spent 21 days in Abu Dhabi and then Switzerland. And the best part of that week that I didn't even realize until I was into my trip was I only had myself to look after, says this retired caregiver. I didn't have to take care of my parents, my kids, my grandkids, or my husband. And I was too far to turn back. She had the time of her life, and everyone she left behind at home survived. She came to our second retreat, and she wrote down a second wake. This time, it was to climb Howling Peak in Canada's Rockies solo. The powerful photo of her at the top of the jagged-edged mountain ridge shows her with a smile the size of the canyon below. She is wearing a sweatshirt in bright coral that reads, "More joy, permission granted." I am telling you all of this because once you've switched your brain's automatic pathway from I can't to maybe I can, a new tape starts to play. It's super quiet at first, maybe even inaudible at times, but as you feed your adaptable little brain cells lyrics about how you might be able to, they start to rewire into new little pathways of possibilities, ideas, and hope until you're jetting to Western Asia or climbing a mountain in the Rockies.
That's fantastic. You've already mentioned journaling, but one of your most reliable tools.
Thank you, because
Okay.
I've got the exercise part. So the exercise part of this, so the wake part, so I make this sound easy, and it's not, because what the wake is, it's not what everybody else wants for you, it's what you want for yourself. And as a mother, as a father, as the people who like to serve others, many of us are, we don't even know what that is anymore, right? It's buried way below. So I encourage this book. Martha, the first book I read by hers was Follow Your North Star. I encourage that one as well. And what that does, it just helps you get in touch with what your soul really wants. And so we're going to start that process today, and take one of your cards, pink or blue. And this is how Martha says to start that process. She says, you can't force a wake to happen, but you can create conditions that will either prevent it or invite it in. One precondition is absolutely necessary. You must befriend, protect, and nurture your own spirit. This means paying attention to your real needs, treating yourself not just fairly, but kindly, and standing up for yourself, even if that displeases people around you. Just as a rundown body cannot do healthy things, a rundown soul cannot conceive a wake. So I want you today to write 1 to 3 things on your card that will create a condition where your true spirit can speak. And it might be, I'm just going to go home tonight and put my feet up, or have a tub and cancel that thing I've been dreading going to. You got something?
No.
It might be, I'm going to buy that book I've been waiting to read and just grant myself some time to read it. I'm going to, go to that coffee shop and create space. Most of it is about space, because those darn busy badges get heavy after a while. So I want you to write 1 to 3 things that you can do today, maybe one you can do tomorrow, one you can do next week, that will feed your soul, feed that inner that you've been too busy to listen to. I'm gonna give you a couple minutes. And you don't have to say them out loud, but if anybody wants to share, you can. Okay, you guys, does anybody have any condition that will support their soul? What have you written down that you could do in the next day or two that would give you that space? I know for me, tonight, I'll jet out of here pretty quick, and I'm meeting friends at 6:30. And I've got my whole evening, and I've got to stop and pick up this, and I've got to pick up my race package, and I've got to check into the hotel. And you know what I'm going to do when I leave here? Just because we're writing this down, I'm just going to go straight to Starbucks and sit there for a bit with the coffee, right? And just decompress from all this. Because as if I don't have 15 minutes for me. So anybody else, what are some of the conditions to create for a soft place for your inner self to land?
I'm gonna have a campfire if it's not too windy.
Campfire, right? And we're always like, I don't have time, and then I have to cut the wood, and it's too late, and it's too windy, and there's too many mosquitoes, and there's just have the campfire. Just permission granted to have the campfire. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
I'm gonna sit and I've been working on a Afghan for my daughter. It was supposed to be a Christmas present 2 years ago.
Let me see. Jennifer. No, who's counting?
We're gonna go see them in BC like next week, so. I'm gonna sit and take the time tonight and probably most of tomorrow just to.
Yeah. Permission granted, right? Permission granted. Awesome. That's great. Okay. You guys win, and you'll be writing book number 3. Okay. We have one more exercise, and we're about 2:35, so we've got about another 20 minutes. Everybody good? Okay.
All right. One of your most reliable tools to return you to joy has been journaling. Can you tell us about some of those favorite journaling tools?
Yeah. So maybe. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. So the one, sorry, I'm bonking myself in the head with this. The one, and this I encourage everybody to pick up too. It's an old book. It's almost as old as me. It's older than me. And it's The Artist's Way. And people's
Sorry to interrupt you. It's actually on the shelf, like right behind us over there. So
this is not a shameless plug by Benjamin, but it
not
is,
at all. I'd never do that.
but it is on the shelf back there. This is a lady called Julia Cameron, and she's this beautiful woman who came up with a couple things to feed. Again, it's all about discovering yourself and feeding your soul and finding your joy. And one of the ways she does it is she calls it morning pages, and it's 3 pages of longhand writing, and it has saved my soul. So I'll read that, and then we'll talk a bit about how to for the morning pages. Even though there are many things that have brought me joy, every now and then I slip back. And that's when I know I need to start carving out time in my agenda purposefully for the things I truly love. So this week I went back to writing my beloved morning pages. This concept is the inspired idea of writer Julia Cameron, who published her groundbreaking book in 1992. The 3 pages of longhand writing she suggests are to be done in the still of the morning and are meant to drain the brain of the stories or fearful parts of our mind have been telling us all night long. Now, here's something else I've learned on my mental health journey. That amygdala that's telling you, warning you, it doesn't sleep. Ah, shit, hey? But the prefrontal cortex does. So you can't rationalize. So have you ever woken up going, and like your boa constrictor around your neck, and you're thinking of all the things you thought you put to bed the day before, or the warning system it goes all night. And I learned that at one of our retreats. And so Julia instructs us that the way to get to the other side of this, or drain the brain of those thoughts that have been going all night, is to sit down and let the sentences tumble from your brain out onto the page, no matter how gnarly, mixed up, or repetitive they are. She explains that your ever-present censor, or what I call my inner critic, or Amy, will weigh in for sure, letting you know you're not doing it right, or that your words are silly, or you can't possibly fill 3 pages. She says to keep going, no matter what, every day. Why is this important? Because your inner critic is wrecking your life with lies and you just didn't realize it. When people ask Julia why she writes her morning pages, she says this, quote, to get to the other side. Morning pages get us to the other side of our fear, of our negativity, of our moods. Above all, they get us behind our censor or our inner critic. Beyond the reach of the censor's babble, we find our own quiet center, the place where we hear the still, small voice that is at once our creator's and our own. So to me, that's divinity, right? It's time that you've created to invite the divine into your life that is always there. Whatever, I don't care what you want to call it. You want to call it God, Allah, Buddha, creator, or a million other things. It's just a space to take some coaching from the divine, to take some instruction. And so when I'm feeling the worst, what I do the morning pages. What the morning pages do for me is get the dark thoughts down in the light of reality, where I can see how I've been scaring myself. On some days, my morning pages have helped me talk myself right out of despair and into hope. Here's an entry from 2023. Oh boy, the swirling thoughts last night. The thoughts wouldn't sit still. The worry wouldn't go away. And now there's a tired ache in my body. I feel like all of my emotional energy has been sucked out of me. My cells even feel tired and like they have nothing left to give. I'm trying to win over my mind, but it's not cooperating. I feel like I can't. I just can't spend another day explaining myself, justifying, convincing, or trying to win people back into my life. Why would I want that control anyway? And now I'm starting to see for how it really is, right? Put the problem down and now, so honey, which is what I call myself when I'm most, and I encourage everybody to pick a term of endearment. Could be buddy, could be dude, surfer dude. Could be whatever you want. So honey, step back and breathe. Just one big deep breath that hears and smells and feels and shakes it all off. And the battle camp, just leave it. Some will stay and fight, but all you've ever had to do is leave. And with those words, I left my internal battle on the page. I closed my journal and I walked away. I sometimes say I trap my inner critic in here. You know, I get her down and I'm like, bye-bye. I returned to paper and 3 whole pages of handwriting in a rut. This essentially engages the creative right side of my brain and creates space for different solutions. For me, it almost always unlocks some lie I've been telling myself and almost always leaves my inner critic calling me honey. I think we're down to the next one. Yeah. So that's morning pages. And yeah, I encourage you to either buy it from right over there or Google it, because, and she has another tool, it's called Artist Date. And it's this idea that you've kind of sketched down, is creating space for yourself. And she instructs to take yourself on a date once a week. And I do mine on Fridays. And some days it's the whole day. Some days I'll be like, I've always wanted to go to that art gallery, but it's usually never that exciting. But even if I can squeeze in 5 minutes, on Thursday, I know, I've got a date with myself tomorrow. And I get that little hit of, dopamine. And then on Friday, I know, even if it's 5 minutes, it just kind of it assures my inner critic that I'm going to take care of myself, is what it does. Awesome. Yeah, that's it. We're on to another journaling tool. And I don't have an intro for Ben, so I'll just shoot. So this one This one,
Can you tell us about the gratitude letter to self?
oh, nice, nice.
Yeah.
Nice
Well,
segue.
maybe we could do an exercise after that.
You're beautiful. Ben is coming on the road with me. You're coming to Drake, you're coming to Cottonite, you're coming to Momart. Okay, so this one is called the gratitude letter, and there's research behind it, but this is how I use it. I don't use it the way the research says, but I use it in a way that always, always frees my soul. Another practice that has been immensely helpful to me is the gratitude letter. And so we've made this a cornerstone of our More Joy retreats. When our typically depleted participants first arrive at one of our sanctuaries for a weekend of joy, a letter of thanks is waiting for them in their room to discover and read. These letters are written by loved ones and come as a surprise to our guests. Almost everyone emerges from their room with tears in their eyes, impacted profoundly by having read in black and white that someone they love is cheering them on as they dedicate a whole weekend to joy. The great thing about gratitude letters is that they are not as meaningful in receiving as they are in composing, according to research. Several studies have showed that writing words of thanks improves mental health, including a 2017 University of California, Berkeley study. They took 306 depressed and anxious students. And in the study, they compared the participants who wrote about negative experiences, and they instructed the other ones to write gratitude letters to somebody they hadn't thanked. 4 weeks and 12 weeks after the writing exercise ended, those who struggle with mental health concerns had positive impacts, receiving psychological. So they proved that. Sorry, I'm getting this all mixed up, but the practice of gratitude gives you relief from anxiety and depression up to 4 to 12 weeks after you do it. Magic, magic. My own personal spin on writing a letter of thanks to someone is to write a letter of thanks to myself. Oh, the letters I've written, and oh, the difference they have made. I would unequivocally say this single-handedly the most powerful tool in my arsenal. When I'm at the lowest of my lows, this little secret weapon never fails to lift me. Here's a letter of gratitude I wrote to myself on October 25th, 2024. Hey, honey. Hey, super dude. I know it's been a tough week, but you did it. You made it. You even rocked it out at times. Thank you for granting yourself permission to feel shitty. I know you prefer to run from that feeling, but you stood your ground against it. You got to the root of it and didn't give it too much attention when it didn't deserve it. Thank you. Thank you for getting yourself into your places of peace, to go into the kitchen to make a little borscht, to go into the pasture, to journal with your horse, and for just being and taking life in rather than trying to force it all into place. Thank you for just plugging through, honey. We made it. And this week, that was enough. It was everything. So grateful, Christalee. So we're going to practice writing a gratitude letter. You're going to use another one of your cards, your second card, and you're going to write a gratitude letter to yourself. And just in case you think that they have to be poetic and wordy and arty and poetry-ish, I want to read you another one that I didn't include in the book. Obvious reasons after you hear it. And this is from November 23rd, 23. So this is, I must have just whipped this one out when I was like feeling grumpy. And I said, dear honey, thank you for changing your shirt so your boobs didn't hang out with you. Thank you for going to the bathroom when you had to. Thank you for supper. Chicken and rice on a Monday ain't so bad. Are you kidding me? Thanks for not getting stressed about this class. Thanks for leaving the drama behind. Thanks for putting on deodorant. Thanks for bathing. Thank you for not trying to be Superwoman. Hallelujah. Amen. Right? It doesn't have to be art. It just has to remind yourself how great you are. Right? So I want you to do dear. And I'd love if you came up with some fun name that if you don't already have one for yourself. Dear Amy, And I want you to thank yourself for, and I want you to focus on this week. Thanks for, and things that you did for others, things you did for yourself, things you did for your soul. And as you're writing, I will just tell you, so you can start, and I'll tell you about a few I've encountered doing these. Last week I was in Fernie. I've had both ends. I had one lady cry in one of our workshops because she couldn't think of a single thing to be grateful to herself for. And that's called clinical depression, right? Yeah, that's when you need somebody to remind you and to walk you home, because we know how great you are, right? You just forget, or depression and anxiety makes you forget. But last week in Fernie, I had this lady and she filled 2 cards. Oh, and I left her about like 2 or 3 minutes. It wasn't that long. And she goes, and I didn't even, she was a teacher, and she said, and I didn't even get to the school part. Like, this was just home. She's like, I'm going to talk to my husband right now. I need a holiday. I need something for this. So go crazy. Write down what you're thankful to yourself for. We'll give you a couple minutes. Okay, how are you doing? Does anybody want to share one thing that they might have been grateful to themselves for? Yeah.
Thank you for getting out of your comfort zone and attending the fundraiser.
Thank you for getting out of the comfort zone and attending the fundraiser. Right. And for those of us, and many of us do with anxiety and depression, these things are even harder. You know, so you got to thank yourself for even getting out of bed some mornings, because some mornings even that is hard. There's a quote in one of my favorite books. You're going to know where this is in your store.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's the boy, the horse, and the mole. And it says on there, you know, the boy says to the horse, you know, what's good about your day? Or I forget how it goes. Anyways, the quote is, you were brave and magnificent just for getting up. You know, just for moving forward. We're all brave and magnificent. We just forget. Yeah.
Just for showering or brushing your teeth, even.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say those are available upstairs in the graphic
They
novel
are.
section.
I go in right behind here, but we'll keep Benjamin to get that next time. The next reading.
Absolutely.
Okay, anyone else? What are they thankful to themselves for? Rhonda.
Thank you for not losing your shit when you know you could. Thank you for keeping things together when they are hard. And thank you for taking time for ice cream.
That's a poster, or it needs to be in the horse book. Serious, right? We're our worst critic. We're so hard on ourselves. Thank you for not losing your shit. Thank you for saying shit on TV. Okay. So I encourage you, if either of those practices feel good, take that little card home, put it in a bigger journal, and keep going on good days and bad days. Yeah. Okay. So we're
at about at our closing reading time. So we'd love to hear the final sentiment from your book, showing your arrival at joy, and the last words on how all of us can find our own version of joy.
okay, you guys. This one I sometimes cry. So sometimes I dance, sometimes I laugh. I don't know what version you're gonna get of me today. All 3 in 1, maybe. So I don't grant myself permission to dance in all the places I want to dance, because that would be everywhere that music is playing. The edit button of life often takes away potential dance floors of grass, kitchen linoleum, and grocery store aisle. Don't you find the best music is in the grocery store? Yes. And they hit us 80s babies. Yet I was starting to dance more often and in more places as these two sacred words, permission granted, began to factor into most of my decisions. My permission granting authority had a new outlook on life and a brand new computer. I lost my computer in 15,000 words of this book while I was writing it, but you'll read that in here. The universe sent it to me to make the book a little longer, apparently. But I was starting to grant myself permission for more joy. Our annual summer holiday to the mountains provided a comforting respite for all I had been denying myself. I jogged up mountains daily with a lightness that lifted my limbs and raised my appreciative eyes to the wonders that were old-growth forests heaving with green foliage and Indian paintbrush flowers erupting in gold-dipped redness. I took on the pages of this book with such appreciation that each word felt sacred and saved just for the purposes of being written and being read. A family outing with my son and his partner delivered us to the midsummer hum of touristy Fernie, BC for the community's weekly outdoor street dance. With the mountains watching over us and a glorious outdoor party in session, I begged each of my family members to come dance with me on the asphalt dance floor. Let me just add that two of these youthful and supple human beings had been performing on stages far and wide for years in shoes of tap ballet, pointe, and jazz, and I have dance bills to prove it. But here, in this paved parking lot with the DJ bass thumping out an irresistible invite, not one of my family members was willing to respond to the call. I had a decision to make. Lug my 57-year-old body onto the dance floor and embarrass the crew, or not. I chose not. But then the title of this book rose in my consciousness, and the two words the universe had made it my mission to write about, permission granted, gently took my hand, leading me where I wanted to go. I had come a long way. I had endured so much in the last 5 years. The loss of a family, the loss of my joy, the loss of a computer. I would add one more loss to the pile. The loss of my inhibitions. I wove my way through the crowd to the outdoor dance floor, intensely aware of my age and my ankle-supporting sandals. True story. And my lack of dance partner. I danced. My son's adorable partner came to my rescue shortly after observing the scene, joining me at the makeshift discotheque delineated only by yellow barricades and drink-holding observers. In her cute little short overalls, she smiled and swayed with such abandon that I felt like my life had been saved. I too danced with abandon, like I was in my kitchen. As our twirls made the mountains flash by in 360-degree splendor and the amplified beat entered my chest, I felt as if I had finally arrived. I wondered why I had decided in the first place that I was too to dance. Too old, too uncoordinated, too embarrassing. I also wondered what other activities, ideas, and longings I had put on hold in unwarranted reverence to being too much of anything. The list was long. But here in the embrace of the Rockies, moving bravely to the rhythm of my one and only life, I danced as if I had been granted permission by everyone who ever mattered. I had granted myself permission to dance. Imagine the dancing. My greatest wish for everyone reading this book is that you too can grant yourself permission to dance, or to sing, or to sit, or to seek, or whatever it is that brings you joy. I invite you to actively seek your joyfulness without apology. Commit to it with the same voraciousness as you commit to a workout routine, your job, or your family. Read up on it, research it, set aside time for it. Go on field trips focused on it. Host parties themed by it. Invite others to join you on the journey to find it. My wish is that you wholeheartedly embrace that which makes you joyful. It's time. It's your time. Permission granted.
Yeah.
Okay. That is actually the end. But you know, because I forget and because I don't want you to forget, I made these cards and I keep it in my wallet because I forget. And it says permission granted for everything your soul seeks. And I literally have to sometimes take it out and go, it's okay, honey. You can go to Starbucks. So I'll get Ben to pass those, and any questions, now's the time. And I just thank each and every one of you. Now I have one last special story, and I so want to rip this out of here and walk around with this mic. You have no idea, but I'm just going to do this. So I was in Drake 2 weeks ago, Willis?
More.
A little more.
It was Mother's Day, the day after Mother's Day.
I was in Drake at the library the day after Mother's Day. And you never know who's going to be at these things, like all of us, right? And it was this little Mennonite community, and for once in a very long time there were a few men in the crowd, which doesn't happen. I tend to draw middle-aged women. And here was this lovely man, and we talked and we chatted and we made some connections, and the next day he sent me this, and I'm going to read you our text chain. And this is why I do this, and this is why now we are connected forever. And I want you to go out and pay this forward, whatever you might have learned here. And this is one way you can do it. This is from this gentleman. And this gentleman drove from Drake today to be here. I've known him for 2 weeks, and he's right behind you. And he wrote, yesterday, I believe for me was meant to be. Why did I even show up at a ladies' event? I'm 87. And I feel so useless and depressed and worried about my future. My boy says, just enjoy each day. We'll deal with the future when it comes, whatever it is. Maybe I could try some of these strategies, but it's hard. And I write, I wish for you some peace, my new friend. I was wondering if you'd like to be my gratitude partner. And that's another tool in the book. In our More Joy movement, we have started partnering people up, and they text something that they're grateful for each morning. You can read about it on page 145. I can start if you wish to continue as my partner. I'm so thankful for having been invited to Drake yesterday and for meeting all the beautiful souls there, especially you. He writes, well, surely you don't have time for me. And I write, I do have time for you. And I have time for me because it will be a gift for me as well. And it goes on. We have a freshly tilled garden and his granddaughter, and I have, the rain, and he has the church, not the building, but the people. And he has Coffee Row, and I have a body that takes me places. And, here we are today, getting to hug each other. And Willis, I wanted you to know that since you and I started, another young lady I know who is 16 has started gratitude journaling like this with me. And it's been the greatest gift, because guess what I've been doing when I wake up for the last 2 weeks? Instead of scrolling, I get to text Willis, get to be thankful for my cats and the simple things and the smell and the sunshine. And my sweet little 16-year-old texts things like my brothers, even though they're stupid. And I get to see her point of view. I get to smell the dirt from Willis's point of view. So it's been a gift for me. So if you know anybody who's suffering, or if you're suffering, the More Joy movement pairs people up. Just talk to me. Look on our webpage, morejoy.ca, and we have a Facebook page that we take on topics of joy every month. So there, you are not alone, and you never have been.
That was so wonderful. I think we maybe don't have time for questions, unfortunately,
I'm
but
here.
Christalee's here. I'm sure she'll be happy to talk to you guys after and answer any questions that you have. I just wanted to say one more time, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for putting a smile on everybody's faces. And if we could give Christalee one more round of applause, that would be awesome. All right, thanks so much.
Okay. Woo! Start.